Hello and welcome to the RV Living Show. I'm Luann Street with Design Your RV Life, and today we're going to be diving into the 14 must-have items for the new RVer. Whether you're a brand new RVer or maybe you just want to see some updated tips and tricks for your current RV life, stay tuned because I've got 14 things that you must have. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the RV Living Show. As I said, I'm Luann Street with Design Your RV Life. This RV Living Show is focused on 14 must-have things that you're going to need if you're a new RVer, or maybe you need to update some things in your life, in your RV life, and just get some things that are easier to use or better quality or whatever. These are the things I use in my own RV life. So I've used all of these things, so I want to share them with you today. So I have some slides because I want to show you what the items are. Now, all of these items are going to be listed at an article on my website, as well as below this YouTube video or in the show notes of the podcast if you're listening to it that way. Okay, so let's get started. So the 14 must-have items for the new RVer. These things, unfortunately, do not come with your purchase of an RV. And you think, wow, shucks, because I just spent a boatload on a new camper and I'm not getting everything I need. And it's true, because if you go off the lot and you try to camp without buying at least these 14 things, you are not going to have a good time and you won't be able to do everything and hook up the way that you want to. So let's get started. All right, so these 14 must-have items for the new RVer. The first one are jack pads. Now, jack pads are essential for when you are pulling into a campsite and you want to separate your jacks from whatever surface is under that the campsite is made of. Now, the reason you might want to do that is because the campsite that you're on has this really great surface to it, and the owner wants you to protect that. They don't want you to put your jacks directly on it because it could harm the surface, and they're trying to keep it nice. So there are some places that require jack pads. The other thing you might want to use a jack pad for is on gravel. This will keep your jacks from sinking deeper into the surface of the campsite, and it just gives more spread to the area. And so, especially if it's been raining, you just don't want to have that all that mired down. And it also will help keep your RV more level, because if you do start sinking in, right, you're going to get unlevel. So must have RV jack pads, right? This is must have number one. Now, since I have used these in the past, my new RV, I splurged and I bought the snap pads, and the link is below this video or in the show notes. Snap pads are actually pads that hook onto the bottom of your jacks. So if you have a hydraulic or electric system of jack pads that have a surface where something can attach to it, you can use snap pads. And of course, you buy them according to what kind of RV that you have. It's based on your model and your floor plan, and what system your jacks are. So you can check them out at the link below this video, but they stay on your jacks, so you don't have to push these underneath and try to get them underneath your RV. And when you put them down, they're just automatically there. I love mine. I've only had them a few months, but I really do enjoy having them on my RV. It was an investment that I really think was a good one. So, all right, number two, must-have items are leveling blocks. So leveling blocks help you level, right? That's what they mean. And these particular ones are yellow plastic. They're made of this great material that do not snap and break, and they hold a lot of weight. So these, you wouldn't necessarily put your jacks on these. I think you probably could, but these are really meant to kind of level out your RV, and the fact that, putting them underneath tires when you have pulled into a campsite, which, by the way, they look level, right? And then you go to level and all of a sudden this one tire is up off off the ground. And one of the best practices is to not actually have your tires leave the ground. You don't want that suspension hanging in the air and everything just resting on your jacks. So for best practice, you want to use some leveling blocks to put underneath the tires, especially if you're leveling and you just can't get it quite right and one or both of your front tires are coming off. You're going to want to put these underneath. Now, the last time I camped, I realized, because in the past you can actually build these up, you can put them together and put a third one on top and kind of drive up on them. But what I found is that I'm able to extend my RV a little taller and get that tire up enough to put in one or two of these, depending on what I'm going to need. And then I'm able to auto level back down on top of them without having to go drive on them. So anyway, that is leveling blocks, must have number 2. So now we're going to go on to water essentials. So you're going to need a fresh water hose. And if you're buying a used RV and they happen to keep their fresh water hose in there, I recommend you get a new one. You just never know what they did with it. You want a clean one for yourself and your family. So go ahead and invest in a marine grade water hose. And the link for that is below this video. All of them are, but I just want you to know that you can click on them, you can look at them, you can see what they are. And if you like a different one, that's fine, but at least you have an idea of what this is. This particular model has some great handles to able to screw everything on correctly and easily. So you want to have a new fresh water hose, and it can't hurt to get a new one every couple of years. And you just want to make sure you don't get dirt up inside of it, because this is where your fresh water comes from. Okay. The next thing when we're talking about water is water filters. Your RV may or may not come with a new water filter, and you're going to want to replace the one that's inside the RV. They're usually underneath the bathroom sink or maybe the kitchen sink, or even outside in your bay. You may have a water filter that all the water flows into your RV and goes through, right? Well, an additional water filter could be one that shows here in this picture. It's like an inline filter, and you're able to hook it up between the water source in the campground and the hose, and the water from the spigot actually flows through it and into the RV. And then the one that's in your coach or in the main part of your camper goes through that other one, and it's another level of water filtration for you. But at least you're going to want to have a micron water filter and find where it is in your RV and replace that. And if your RV doesn't come with one, then you're going to want to have that for the first time that you camp. Okay, the next water essential, a must-have number 5, is your water pressure regulator. You're going to want this because all water systems at RV parks are not the same. And the water pressure that's coming through their spigots could potentially harm your camper. You don't want to blow out a pipe because their water pressure is so great and it's coming into your pipes, and you have a water problem. So a water pressure regulator is something that you have at the spigot that you hook up before water even enters your hose, and you set the PSI. I think it's around 40 PSI. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I know what mine is, and mine is set there. It's been a while since I set it, because when you do set it, you forget it, and you just have to hook this up and you're good. So, and then that way, wherever you hook up, that the proper PSI is coming into your camper, and that you're not going to have any water damage because of too much water pressure. So this is must-have number 5. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to think about is an elbow hose connection. So in that wet bay that you have where all your water system is hooked up to, there is where you hook things, hook the water source into. Well, with the elbow hose connection, a lot of times there's like a hole in your bay where you can bring the hose up through and hook it and close it so that you can close your bay. And this allows that to be that way, because if you hook it straight in, right, you can't close your bay. So an elbow hose connection is a great thing to have. Now, these are my favorite. I just can't tell you how much I love these things. These quick release hose connectors are amazing. So I don't know about you, but trying to turn and turn and turn and turn and getting that tight fitting on that water connection, leaves so much room for error. And I've been out there with a wrench trying to tighten it. Well, guess what? If you install these, you can tighten it and it's secure, but you're able to disconnect it quickly by slipping them on and off. Saves your hands, saves leaks. These are amazing. I highly recommend getting a set of quick release hose connectors. You're going to figure out where you can use these things everywhere. Okay, the next must-have, number 8, is a sewer hose, right? You've got to have one of those. Otherwise, you can't dump your tanks. 𝐬𝐤𝐾 makes a great one. I highly recommend that you get one with a clear. If you see right here on the screen, let me do this, where my blue dot is, you want a clear place at the end as it's going into the outlet. Because when you are evacuating your tank, you want to see water running clear at the end. You want to make sure that everything got out of that hose. And you can't know that unless you have a clear end. So this is a great hose for you to have. This picture shows a 15-foot with an additional 10-foot so that you can have 25 feet. Because if you haven't already learned this, there are places that when you park that the campsite, they're not all standardized. You're not necessarily near your sewer hookups, and you could be really far away. So having some extra ones for you to be able to hook together and be able to make it to that sewer hookup is really great to have. And this is a great hose. And we used this one, and I still use this one. I bought a new one for my new RV, but when we were full-time, I mean, we had it for 4 years, maybe 5 years. I think we had to replace one once, because that's the thing that you want, right? You want to look at it every time you hook it up. You don't want to have a mess on your hands. That's the last thing you want, is to have a black tank mess. So get a good sewer hose. That is important. Now, the next thing is a sewer hose support, right? Because the gravity, we want gravity to be in our favor. We don't want to have to make our black tank go downhill. And there are some campgrounds that build the access to the sewer up above ground, which is, I don't know why, but you're going to want a sewer hose support, because you want to support it coming out of the bay or the connection. My black tank connection is below the bay and flowing downhill. And you can see this one is angled, right? It has that angle to it. So then your hose can go down and you're able to adjust where it sits. So for the optimal angle to be able to get everything out of your hose. And it comes with that neat handle that keeps it all together so it doesn't keep springing open. It's great. This is also a 𝐒𝐤𝐾 item. Now, more tank essentials, right? Happy Camper. I love this product. I do not like the smelly tabs that go into your black tank. You're putting more smell to cover up smell. You're just going to end up with lavender scented poop, right? You just don't want to have that. What you need is an enzyme eater. Of course, what comes out of our bodies is natural. It does break down. It does decompose. It does eventually go away. So if you can help speed up that process, you're going to eliminate odor. So Happy Camper is my favorite RV item. You put 1 scoop into your black tank after you empty it, and you add some water back. That's a best practice. You don't want a pyramid of death, because you'll never get that big triangle of poop out of your tank without having it cleaned, and it costs you money. So you want to add some water back. If you don't do this already, this is a best practice. You want to make sure that you fill your black tank up a little ways with at least a couple gallons of water, so that when you do go, everything has something to, move around. And then you put a scoop of this Happy Camper in there, and it helps with the breaking down. The enzyme helps eat up the bacteria, and there is no smell. So I highly recommend this product. It's amazing. Number 11 is a CATV, right? Cable TV connector. A lot of campgrounds have cable for you to be able to hook up to, but if you don't have these connectors, you're not going to be able to do that. A lot of times your RV already has the cord, but you don't have the piece to hook to the box or the cable connection on the other side. So these are things that you're going to need. And this is the start of the electrical essentials that you're going to need. So if you like to watch cable TV, these are things that you're going to need. Okay, so the next one is your 30 or 50 amp, depending on what your RV is. And honestly, you are going to need, this usually comes with your RV, but if you have to replace one, the link is below. This one is the power cord extension. So your power cord can come out. And then this one is also an extension that you could put on the other end to be able to hook farther away. So having an extra one of those, so that when you're parked, if you're too far away and you can't hook up, this will allow that. So this is actually an extension, because your camper should come with the power cord already. But also, if you need to replace your power cord, that is something that you need to look into, and something that every time that you unhook and hook up, you want to look at that cord and make sure that it still doesn't have any cracks in it, doesn't have any things, looks like it's splitting or doing anything. And then you're going to want to think about changing that. So, all right. Number 13 is a 30 or 50 amp reducer plug. So depending on which RV you have, if you've got a 50 amp, and you want to be able to camp where there's only 30 amp, you're going to need a reducer, right? Because your RV is wired for 50 amp. And if you're going to camp, some state parks aren't upgraded to 50 amp yet. A lot of them are trying really hard to do that. But if you want to be able to step down to camp with 30 amp, you're going to need this. And this is going to help you reduce down in order to get electricity based on where you are. Opposite is true. My RV is 30 amp now. I used to have a 50 amp. We had one of those. I went to a 30 amp RV, and now I had to buy an adapter. Now, instead of a reducer, right, I'm increasing. I'm not increasing, but I'm trying to plug into 50 amp. So I want to be able to use the electricity, but not have too much into my RV. So you're going to want one of these, because you just don't know when you check into a campground. You could have a surprise if you don't, maybe you forgot to ask, or you're doing it on purpose. So having one of these is essential. Okay, must have number 14. This particular surge protector, it costs a pretty penny. It costs a couple $100, okay? But it is so worth it, because if you plug in to a campground hookup and their electricity is wonky, that electricity is going to come through your electrical cord into your RV and cause damage. You don't want that. Your RV, you spent a lot of money on it. You want to maintain the safety of it as much as possible. So this surge protector really helps diagnose the fact that when you plug in at your campsite, that you have the right amount of electricity coming out of it. And then it also helps any power surges and shuts it off before it gets into your RV. You want one of these. These are important. This is almost a non-negotiable. And the Progressive Industries one that I have linked below also has a warranty that if you've used it right, they'll give you a new surge protector. And I think there's a warranty on damage to your RV. You have to read the fine print. But I know that because I spent a couple $100 on it, I want that protection and I want it to work right. And this particular Progressive Industries one is the one that I recommend and that I use. All right. Well, that wraps up our 14 must-have items for the new RVer or for RV period, right? Just any RV. If you're not a new RVer, maybe you're an experienced one, but you want to buy all the stuff for a different RV, then here you go. So the links to these and other items are at this link, and you're going to be able to go there and read the article, because I wrote an article about this too. This video will go with it. The podcast will also be there for you to listen to if you'd prefer to listen to it that way. Or look down below here on YouTube or on the podcast show notes. All the links are there. They do direct to Amazon. So if you do potentially purchase once you've clicked on them, I may get a small commission that helps keep this channel going, helps keep these episodes coming your way. But again, it's not going to help me retire. So, but I appreciate if you do use my links, because that's amazing. That helps support the channel, and I can keep bringing great RV stuff, information and education and inspiration to your RV life. All right. Well, until next time, I wish you many happy travels. Thank you for joining me for the RV Living Show. I hope this episode helps you in creating an RV life that you love. Until next time, I encourage you to stop wondering and start wandering.